Hey everyone, this is Pete, and we're going to take a look at SNK Heroines Tag Team Frenzy today. I thought it was important to take a look at this game because, I mean, there's been some mixed opinions going around about it recently, and I think some people are missing the point a little bit. So I wanted to take you on a little tour of it today because I think it's actually quite an important game for a number of reasons that's well worth checking out, particularly if you, like me, are not very good at fighting games. Now, for the unfamiliar, SNK Heroines is set up as a party fighting game, so similar to something like Super Smash Bros. So a lot of people have actually reasonably accurately compared it to Super Smash Bros. In fact. But we'll get on to why I think it's important in just a moment. So we'll just take a little tour around what we've got on offer here. So there is a bunch of stuff to unlock. So there's artwork and things you can take a look at. So different backgrounds for the endings that you unlock. There's a sort of very nice bits of stylized artwork. Specific combinations of characters allow you to unlock illustrations as well. Those are all very cool. And you get those by playing through the story mode. And then from there you've got access to the online mode, which I haven't tried yet. And I'm not going to try in this video for the minute. There's the battle mode, which gives you access to versus, survival, training mode, a tutorial, and a local room match with multiple switches if you've got access to that sort of thing. This is the Switch version, obviously, that we're playing here. Then there's the story mode, and then there's the customization mode. So you start with a bit of gold, so you can actually start customizing your characters right away if you want to. And you earn gold pretty easily, even if you're losing battles in story mode, you're constantly earning gold. So you can do a bit of customization to begin with. So here is gender bent Terry Burgard. You can look around and zoom in and out and that sort of thing. Each character seems to have 3 costumes at the moment. I don't know if that's going to be added to with DLC or patches or anything like that, but there's a nice mix of different styles in there. So this one for Terry's kind of cool. So let's unlock this one. That'll cost us 3,000. And as part of that costume, we unlock some accessories that can then be used to sort of accent other outfits if you want to as well. And then in accessories, you've got all these different slots that you can play with. So if we switch to that new costume we just unlocked, you'll see that... oh, didn't actually switch to it. There we go. That's better. Right. Yeah, so there we go. You see that's that comes with a hat included. Comes with that wing on the back as part of it as well. So you can take those off if you don't like them, or replace them with something else, which is pretty nice. So you can customize that to a certain extent. You can't move them around and sort of position them as you like, which is a bit of a shame. But I mean, there's plenty of options of making some interesting looking characters there anyway. So. And then when you're done, you can save that as a particular customization, and you can save up to 3 customization sets for each character, which is nice. So let's save that one for now. You can give them names as well if you really want to. Right. So just to demonstrate how the fighting works, I'm just going to go into survival mode now rather than taking you all the way through story mode, just so I don't embarrass myself on the final boss too much. I will just quickly show you the tutorial mode as well, which is quite nice. So the actual game system is relatively straightforward. So the tutorial doesn't go into a huge amount of depth, but it does tell you pretty much everything you need to know. Of particular note are these 2 last tutorials on cancelling, which is probably the most advanced concept in the game, which is just chaining different moves together in order to make more substantial combos than you would otherwise be able to do. But it doesn't really get much more complex than that, and I'll explain why I think that's a good thing once we get into the gameplay. So, for our characters, I'm going to take Terry because we just customise her, and we'll use our customization data there. And I will also take Sylvie, because I've had some fun with her as well. And we'll just take a random level. Alright, so as you probably know already, this is a 2-on-2 tag battle game. Unlike something like Marvel vs. Capcom, though, you only have one life bar between the two of you. And also, actually beating a fight is not just a case of reducing someone's life to 0 either. In a sort of vaguely Smash Brothers style, which is where a lot of these comparisons have come from, you have to reduce their life down to 0 and then perform a particular special move on them in order to actually knock them out completely. So survival mode usually starts pretty simply. So that gives me the opportunity to demonstrate some of the things we can do. So we've got standard sort of dashing forwards and backwards, so back step and an actual dash forwards that you can combine with a strong attack to knock them back a long way. You've got a light attack that you can cancel up to 3 times and also cancel into special moves. There we go. So that's a light hit combo chained into a special move. You've got a dedicated block button, which some people don't seem to like very much, but it means you have to make a real effort to block, and it also highlights how important blocking is as well. So I think that's good. The block button can also be used for evasion as well, so you're actually invincible while you're evading as well. You can air dash as well if you jump and double tap like that. I believe you can evade in the air as well, yeah. So, and you're invincible while you're evading in the air as well. So, alright, special moves are all very simple. On the Switch you just press the A button and a direction and that does various different things. So this is A by itself. Oops. A and down does this one with Terry, which is a close range one. And A and backwards does that one, which is a nice bit of a gap closer. And so this brings us to why I think this is a good game for beginners to play. A lot of people have been a bit snobbish about this and saying that things like the fact you can't crouch and the dedicated block button and such like are all things that make it not a good teaching game. But the thing I want to point out here is my theory of fighting games are there are 2 sort of distinct lines of things that you need to understand in order to be fighting to be good at fighting games. One of those is understanding the basic strategy of fighting games. So that's having an idea of things like understanding space, how to close gaps, how to create space if you need to, how to watch your opponent and recognize openings to attack, when to block, when to go on the offensive, and that sort of thing. And this is something that SNK Heroines is very good at. Because the movesets in the game are so simple to pull off and execute, it means that the emphasis is very much on that side of things. And the second aspect of getting good at sort of your average fighting game these days is having the actual dexterity to pull off things like combos and special moves and that sort of thing. So familiarizing yourself with common inputs, like everything from the fireball input to in something like Dead or Alive, having an understanding for what the combos that really work are. And that latter aspect is the bit that I've tended to struggle with and found a bit of a roadblock for me in the past, which is why I like this game so much, because it allows me to concentrate on and practice that first aspect, the more strategic aspect of fighting, without getting hung up on not being able to do a particular special move. Because that's always the thing that I found particularly frustrating in a lot of fighting games in the past, is just not the characters not doing what I tell them to. And that's entirely on me. That's me not being good enough at fighting games and not having had enough practice. But I find that such a roadblock, typically, that it's very difficult to muster up the enthusiasm to want to learn them. So I take something like Guilty Gear, which I picked up the PS4 version a while back on the grounds that people had told me it had a very good training, a very good tutorial mode. But I found a lot of the inputs in that so difficult to do as someone who is not accustomed to modern fighting games that I just didn't find it enjoyable or compelling enough to want to repeatedly practice things before I could even get into a fight. Whereas what SNK Heroines does is it keeps the fighting system so simple that you can get right into the action, have a good experience, learn something from it without running into that wall. And that's what I really like about it. So yes, it is simple. Yes, it is a party game. No, you're not going to learn how to accurately pull off a fireball or a dragon punch or anything like that. But you are going to have fun, and you are going to understand some of the basic fundamental things that are going to make you good at fighting games. So once you've mastered that side of things in SNK Heroines, no one is saying this is going to have to be your main game or your only game, but it is a great place to learn those fundamentals and develop your skills from there. So once you're confident with how you can use space, how you can close gaps, how you can time your attacks perfectly, when's a good time to use a throw, when's a good time to use mid-range attacks, when's a good time to sort of dash attack and go on the offensive and try and knock back. Once you've got a feel for those things, yeah, that's when you can start developing your dexterity in a more complex game. That's when you can start learning all these special moves. That's when you can start learning combos, because by that point you'll already have an understanding of how a fighting game works, of how sort of this core strategy side of things works. And that, I think, is why this game is important, because I know lots of people who have just refused to touch fighting games for a long time, just because they perceive them as too complicated. They perceive that barrier of entry as too high. And yeah, I know a lot of people are going to go, well, just get good. But, you know, there is an important purpose to making games that are for people who have not tried them before. If you throw someone into something complicated that they're not able to engage with immediately, that they don't understand, and worse, they often don't understand why they're not getting things right, then yeah, they're going to bounce off and they're not going to look back. It's not going to make them inclined to want to try something else. It's just going to make them think that fighting games aren't for them. And as a result of that, they will miss out on some great games that are a lot of fun to play both by yourself and with friends, whether they're local or online. And so I think SNK Heroines is going to go a long way to developing a new kind of breed of fighting game player, if you like. So people who are new to the genre, who maybe aren't entirely comfortable with even sort of established classic inputs like your fireballs and your dragon punches and that sort of thing, but they will develop the skills they need to basically the skills they need to understand how to win a fight, if you see what I mean. So it's not necessarily having the dexterity or the ability to effectively use special moves and combos in a more complicated game, but it is understanding space, understanding aspects of the game outside of that need for dexterity, of that need for actually having the physical prowess to be able to pull off certain moves. So in this, pulling off a move is just a case of pushing a button in the direction at the right time. Exactly the same philosophy that Smash Brothers takes. And you know, Smash Brothers is something you see on the competitive circuit. I'm not at all saying that this is a game that needs to be on the competitive circuit or anything like that, and I seriously doubt it's going to be, despite its pedigree. But it is going to go a long way into getting people to understand how these games work, how they can enjoy them, how they can get something out of them. And the plus side of that is someone who is new to fighting games can get into that. But not only that, if they've got friends who maybe don't play quite so many video games, but who enjoy an occasional multiplayer session. I know I've got several friends like that who are quite happy to come over and play some games for a bit, but they don't have the time or the inclination to learn something complicated. Whereas this, or Smash Brothers, or something like it, is simple enough for them to be able to understand immediately. Which is good. Okay, I think I've said my piece. So, let's just play out the remainder of this survival mode and see how we get on. And I will explain some things as they kind of come to my attention as we go through. So I think the core difference between this and the conventional fighting game is this need to actually use one of these specific finisher moves in order to conclude a fight. So knocking someone's life down to 0 does not automatically knock them out. However, it does give you a good chance of still winning the fight, because if you knock someone's health down to 0, then it will stun them for a moment. And if your special gauge, which is the pink gauge at the top of the screen, is at a high enough level at that point, then yeah, you can do one of these finishing moves and conclude the match. However, if they come out of stun before you're able to do that, then yes, they will be able to block it. It's not an unblockable super attack by any means. Now, the other interesting thing about this game, which is another reason that it gets compared a bit to Smash Brothers, is these items. So you've probably seen those yellow orbs that are glowing around the place. Those have items in them that you can trigger by flicking the right stick. And those have various effects. So there's some very simple ones that will immediately restore your life or your special gauge. But there's also things that have an effect on your opponent or you. So at the moment, if you look at my health bar in the top left, I've got a hurricane that I can use. So I can trigger that, and it will knock my opponent into the air for a moment. Then there's a bomb. And flicking the right stick in different directions will do different things with some of these items. So the bomb, for example, you can trigger coming in from the top or throw it in from the side of the screen as well. This one here is poison, which will gradually drain the opponent's life, which is quite a good one to use. So if you can keep your distance while you're doing that, that's a good thing to do. Alright, so see, oh, she's unstunned. I can now use my finisher to conclude the match there. Hitting her with a metal slug machine, very nice. So I think the important thing to bear in mind with this is, yes, I mean, I've said my piece about how it's an accessible, good game for newcomers to fighting games, but it's also just fun. It's enjoyable. It's got cute girls in cute outfits. It's fun. It's got good music. It's got good sound effects. It's got a really meaty punch sound. It's something I really like in a fighting game. Nice feedback on what you're doing. It feels good to play. It's satisfying. It's got this lovely sense of impact. You got these crazy special effects every time you hit anyone. So no, it's not a game that you're supposed to be taking seriously. It's not a highly competitive game that people are going to be playing at Evo for years to come. But it is enjoyable. And for me, as someone who is not particularly interested in becoming highly competitive, but someone who is interested in learning more about fighting games, it's ideal. It's exactly what I hoped it would be, in fact. And I think dismissing it on the grounds of something like, you can't crouch, well, you know what? I don't care. Not being able to crouch means less moves I have to learn, less things I have to understand, less choices I have to make, so that I can concentrate on that core strategy I described. And so there you have it. So up to 7 wins so far. Let's switch out and play with Sylvie for a bit, because she's fun. So you can tag out at any time and play with the other character. Oops. Bunny girl brawl. It's always fun just because she's like crazy. And she's quite interesting because she's got quite a short range on her attacks as well, so you have to really get in close with her for a lot of attacks. But she does have some very powerful moves when you can get in there. You see, even her range attack there is pretty close range. Actually, that's one thing that is quite interesting that I haven't mentioned yet, which is the fact that the less life you have, the more special meter you have. So there's kind of a sort of arcadey risk versus reward element there. So if you allow yourself to get pummeled, or if you do just happen to get pummeled through incompetence, much like me, then yeah, you have sort of more special move energy to play with. You're more likely to be able to get off 1 or 2 of those dream finishes if you time them badly, which is nice. Alright, 8 down. Bit of Terry on Terry action, maybe.
Hey, come on.
Ready, go.
So I'm interested to see where this game will go from here. So they've sort of hinted and teased that there might be some DLC, that they might be considering a sequel. This is basically a fairly new idea for SNK. I mean, I know they've done Gal Fighters before, but that was a long time ago. And fighting games have changed a lot since then. So this is effectively kind of a new thing for SNK to be doing. So in many ways, it's kind of a sort of testing ground for some of the things they might have wanted to implement. Some things they'll get right, some things they'll get wrong. But I think on the whole, they've done a pretty good job with this. It's certainly a fighting game that I feel like I can engage with, that I can enjoy, I can do well with. And that I'd be happy to bust out anytime I got some friends over and we fancy playing a fighting game of some description that isn't quite as firmly in favour of someone who is highly skilled as something like Street Fighter 2. So, for example, last time we played Street Fighter 2, the one guy who remembers how to play Street Fighter 2 is the person who managed to succeed. I'm down and out.
Finish.
So that's SNK Heroines, basically. It's a lot of fun. I'm glad I picked it up, and I'm looking forward to spending some more time with it. So, if you do have the game on Switch and you'd like to play online, do feel free to reach out to me, and I'm happy to play some online matches with you. It'd be quite interesting to see what the community is like for this over time. Because I know there are people out there who have bought this and are enjoying it and having a good time with it. And the people who are naysaying are a bit of a vocal minority, I think. So, like I say, I think there's a lot of value in this game. You may disagree, and that's absolutely fine, but I think it's worth giving a go, and it's worth acknowledging who this game is really for. It's for people like me, who have struggled a bit with previous fighting games, who have found it difficult to engage with them, or even enjoyed them in some cases. Whereas this is a game that I can boot up, I can have a quick fight on, and I can feel like I've got something out of it. Which is all I really wanted from it, really. I didn't want anything complicated. I didn't want anything that was going to effectively become a sport for me like other people. I just wanted a game with cute girls kicking the crap out of each other, and that's exactly what I got from it. So, thanks for listening to my rant, thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. Be sure to check out moegamer.net for new articles on Japanese and Japanese-inspired video games, new and old, every weekday. Every month, Moe Gamer features an in-depth exploration of an individual game or series as its cover game, so be sure to check the archives to see if your favourite has had a deep dive yet. If you'd like to support the site directly, please consider becoming a patron or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.